Alright everyone, it's time for the Occult, video number 333, Moral Panics and the Occult, because what you'll notice is that which is hidden or secretive is almost always wrapped up in what becomes moral panics. It doesn't even really matter what the panic is. As I've pointed out, moral panics are very formulaic. We're in one right now, by the way. It's very funny to watch, for instance, the US leftist groups claim that opposition to CRT, critical race theory, is a moral panic. Quite the opposite. What's happened is that the belief in systemic racism is the moral panic, and people are simply pointing out the actual obvious reality, which is that you're not, if that was true, you're not tackling it by any recognizably objective manner. You're trying to insert historical revisionism into schools in the name of fighting bigotry. Well, that's in and of itself not a panic. These people understand what critical race theory is. I know I do. I wrote a book on the subject. Here's the thing, though. You'll note that genuine moral panics almost always overlap with the occult in some way. Satanic panic, and yes, I know some people out there be like, well, yes, but look at this FBI report. Okay, yes, there were cults that abused kids back in the 80s. There are cults that still do that, as we've seen, Epstein and others. That doesn't make them devil worshippers, and the idea that the garden variety Satanist, who is an atheist, by the way, or the Wiccans or something, participate in that kind of behavior has never been true. The occult, though, was really used as a framing for it, something spooky, get people afraid, get the soccer moms to tune into the late-night radio or whatever, as a foil for what essentially on the surface was corporatized and political. Groups that want to make money or gain power utilize moral panics. The occult has always been the whipping boy, the scapegoat for what is usually a social, economic, or political issue. We see this right now. We've also seen it in the past. Freemasons, the idea that the Freemasons worship Satan, etc., that they use the term Lucifer and they mean the devil. This is predicated partially it's their own fault for being secretive, technically not a secret society, but when you have the handshakes and symbolism and stuff, people will misinterpret that. If therefore you're going up against orthodox Christian religion, and they don't like you because they consider you heretical, and they feel you're draining membership, although most of the Freemasons of yesteryear during that panic were Christians. They did go to church, just to be clear. Naturally, you want to destroy or denigrate that movement. So you simply say, well, obviously they're worshiping the devil. They've got all these symbols, and they're heretical, they're paganistic in nature, they're evil in form. Likewise, people have said the same thing about the Catholic Church. While I would admit genuinely to the pagan symbolism within Catholicism, yes, the Pope's mitre is indeed Babylonian in origin, which makes sense since the Babylonians informed Judaism and that informed what became Catholicism. The idea that the Vatican is a center of devil worship is wrong. It's a center of corruption. It's a center of mafioso-style corporatistic greed and hedonism, but it's not a center of literal devil worship. If anything, the people involved in the corruption, probably they're just not taking their own gods seriously, don't really fear a hell, and so they don't see a problem with it. Well, devil worship, of course, in the Christian sense, would be the inversion of the entire religion, technically speaking, unless you're getting all Promethean and you're looking into paganism. We see this with moral panics at this current moment. There's an element of things that are secret, things that are hidden, things that are occult, they're unknown, things that are spooky. The Halloween-y, almost Hollywood-esque side of the spooky plays a role in this. You see this Astroworld concert stuff. People are saying that because there was imagery that was spooky there, that it was a giant devil worship ceremony. Well, it was a concert with apparently very lax safeguards with regards to audience safety. That does not mean that it was a sacrificial ritual. But that will get the news. If you say devil worshippers killed a bunch of people for Satan, that's a little bit more exciting than some people died in a mosh pit now, isn't it? I've pointed this out as well with regards to music videos. I'll go into the entertainment side of things. If you look into music videos, especially a lot of the 2000s era pop, you will find a lot of paganistic and occult imagery in it. But that imagery is not inserted there. I've looked at this in detail, and I've looked into some of these people's lives. These aren't occultists doing it. What they're doing is trying to get free airtime. They're trying to get free advertising because they know that people will endlessly virally replicate images or footage from concerts, from music videos, etc., if they make it spooky enough to be passable as New World Order agenda, Illuminati, this person's, they've got the all-seeing eye, they must be a Mason, and they're trying to get the kids to worship Satan. Well, negative press is good press to a great extent within Hollywood, within the music industry. Well, of course you're going to put it there. There was an entire moral panic. The weird side of YouTube, which no longer is particularly searchable, unfortunately, was filled with such analysis. Well, you know, you've got these videos with extra millions or tens of millions of views on them describing the latest Marilyn Manson single or what Lady Gaga ate the other day, and it gets them attention. And attention is money. You know, you don't just stay on the billboards in a vacuum. You have to make sure that people are actually discussing what you're doing. So this sort of thing happens. What is secretive, though? Sometimes is targeted even when it coincides with orthodox systems, like with Catholicism. Mainline religions, when technically you could say that the post 9/11 view of the United States on Islam was a miniature moral panic. Now, I realize that there is Islamofascism, and I'm not saying, well, Islam is perfectly fine. I happen to have looked through the Quran, the Hadiths, etc. I don't like what I see there. But the idea that Islam as a whole, that individual Muslims were involved with trying to take over the West, was never true. We know this. It doesn't make any sense. You're talking about one fairly narrow interpretation of the particular religion that is imperialistic and murderous, and extrapolating that to be all of the other groups, even though some of those groups viciously hate one another and have fought for hundreds of years. The same is true within Christendom. Within Christendom. The idea that Christians, the other day, this is a funny thing, the other day Flynn came out, he was doing a speech, talking about how the United States should only have Christianity as the one religion and everyone should worship Jesus. And I was actually shown this, linked it by another individual who follows me. And when I said I don't have a problem with that, he's like, well, you don't have a problem with this theocratic view. And I'm like, this is a private citizen. The idea that this speaks to a broader understanding of Christendom within the United States, even among fundamentalists, is wrong. I will oppose the fundamentalism. I will point out the contraventions and contradictions within the religious system, but I don't think that Mike Flynn, private citizen, speaks for the majority of Christians. I don't go down the street worrying that I'm going to be attacked for being a pagan. It's just, it doesn't happen. Maybe if I were in the undeveloped world, maybe if I were in an extreme Orthodox environment, I might face harassment. Here in the Netherlands or in the United States, nobody cares. I'll go through the most rural part of Alabama and probably not face any ridicule whatsoever. Nobody cares. But there's a mini style moral panic. We see this even now with Christianity in the United States. There are still people that are like, they're trying to take the abortions. They're trying to take gay rights away. They're trying to put us in cages. They're going to kill all the non-Christians. McQAnon. They've got Gadsden flags and MAGA hats. Oh my God. They want to establish theocracy. Many of them appear to be more libertarian in their religious leanings. But if you're from the outside looking in, it's easy to construe it that way because of the symbolism. You've associated, and sometimes you associate it subconsciously, like with MAGA or something. There are people on the left that associate that with far-right, hardline, even extremist ideology. The average person, though, that's part of that doesn't see it that way. And of course, you can argue that that sort of movement is loosely tied with the occult, too. If you look at Keck, if you look at the frog memes of yesteryear, there was occultism there, occult memetics. I described this, again, in a book. Now, moral panics, almost always there's some sort of occult symbolism or inclusion with regards to them. I find the topic fascinating. This happens over and over and over again. The burning times, the moral panic. Oh, witches are everywhere. We got to kill people. The fact is that there was some genuine occult practice there, herbal medicine mainly, abortifacients in some cases, basic astrology. Apparently some of it was predicated on the idea that individuals had gone off and met with the Norwood Gypsy and they were doing fortune telling and got killed. Apparently, I think that was the Northamptonshire witches, actually, if I remember correctly. Don't quote me on that, though. I'm writing a compilation on witchcraft, but I got to review some of these works. It's been years since I edited one on Salem, for instance. Cotton Mather and Witchcraft. Great work, by the way. A Trial of Witches by Upham. If you look at the situation, though, it's very funny. You also see the same thing happening again that you see in modern entertainment. So first you have like the satanic panic, and then people say, well, this gets these bands a lot of attention. My mediocre pop song, I'm going to have a big pentagram behind me. Likewise, back then, what happens? Not that many decades after that tale of the Norwood Gypsy or the Norwood Witch, you have the universal fortune teller of Miss Bridget, the Norwood Gypsy. It was adapted into a fictional work that takes off of the Book of Knowledge from 2 decades before in part and was ostensibly a Christian work. It's like, oh, by the Lord, we can look at this deistic universe around us and it has order. Therefore, astrology is probably real. It has order. We're looking at hierarchies and categories and the movement of stars and things like that. And palmistry must be real. There's order to the designs on the human hand. Ah, praise the Lord. Jesus has given us a great gift so that we can practice chirognomy and see the future. We can practice pyromancy and stuff. Very, very interesting topic. By the way, go into the history of fortune tellers sometime. I got an old blog post, I think, from years and years ago where I compared some of them. Anyway, getting slightly off track, but I'm caffeinated, so that's always a good thing. Yes, moral panics, you will usually find at least a kernel of occultism involved with them. Occult symbolism usually, not real witchcraft. That's about all. Peace out.